Hey guys, and welcome back to another video, and in this video I'll be going through both the last 2 weeks of tipping and how I went in those 2 weeks, and then going through and tipping for round 17, the last week of the first week outside of the buys, I should say, back to 9 games tipping. So this one might be a little bit longer as we get through the games, but let's jump through it. So Fremantle against Essendon to start round 15. I'm pretty sure we went through this one anyway for you guys. But in the end, I had Freo by 35, as you can see, and they won by 41, so I was 6 points off there. Geelong, I had by 15. I thought that they were going to be able to get over the top of Brisbane, but Brisbane absolutely smashed it there. So I was ending up 56 points off there. Then you had Carlton against North Melbourne. I thought Carlton would at least be semi-competent, but I don't believe in them any bit. This year has been really weird. Both them and Sydney I thought would be top 5-6 teams, but obviously Sydney had massive injury issues, and have looked actually a sort of top 8 side, I would say, when they had their players back. But Carlton have just looked absolutely horrendous this year, and this gave me more confidence in North Melbourne, only for them to be smashed the week after, which we'll get to in a bit. So I was, in the end, 36 points off on that one. A bad tip. This one, a really good tip. The Swans, I've sort of nailed the last couple of weeks, sadly. So we'll see what happens this week. But yeah, I thought that this was going to be a 15-point win. They won by 19, so I was 4 points off there. Probably should have been a bigger victory, now that we know, obviously, that they kicked 9 goals, 17, which isn't the best effort in the long run. So I was pretty close on that one. Then I had Collingwood by 39 over St Kilda, and they ended up winning by 34. Is that? Yes, 34. So I was 5 points off there. A pretty good display there. Then we have GWS against Gold Coast, and I thought that Gold Coast would be a better side than this. They are still ahead of GWS on the ladder, and still do have a game in hand on them on the ladder. So effectively, you can realistically view Gold Coast as roughly probably about a 4 seed, because they've got Essendon, and I believe by the end of it, because we've just seen the news that Zach Reed's going in for surgery and season over, Essendon's backline is destroyed. And even with all their guys coming back, you'd still put it heavy favourites for Essendon, not for Essendon, for Gold Coast in that game, and that would tip them all the way up, basically, unless it was a thriller, to put them in 4th place over the top of Geelong, just because their percentage. Oh wait, no, their percentage is 120. I've completely messed it up. So they would drop down a further spot to 5th. I thought they were 130%, but that's the Dogs. So yeah, no, they are. They'd slot right into ahead of the Hawks in 5th place and be right on Geelong's tail. But I had more confidence than I probably should have with them. And then you've also got to round out the round. Bulldogs, I probably should have gone by more. I said by 46. They won by 79. They just smoked Richmond. Richmond are falling apart at the moment, and are probably going to end up, you'd expect, still finishing 17th, but there should be a gap start to be created. I expect North Melbourne to win 5 or 6 games, at least another game or 2, which would create a gap of potentially a 2-3 win gap there. So that'll happen. But in the end, to get a 4 out of 7 for the round, which put me in the top 38%. And yeah, I did have a cumulative margin of 165, but this website doesn't have cumulative margins for the other games in the round other than the first game. So we move on to round 16, and Port Adelaide against Carlton started the round. I had Port by 18 points. You would have seen this as well, and this is something I'll point out. If you are wondering if I don't put up a video, if I'm still doing tipping, you'll just see it on my X account. I'll put a post up. Usually it's about 10 minutes before the game, just because I usually forget, and because I had no chance of getting a video out on the throughout the last weekend's games, then you'll see that I tipped pretty much all of them, and then just decided, I think it was on the Saturday, that I hadn't got a video out. I was like, I'll just wait a week for this. So yeah, that'll be usually, if I don't have a game video out by the Thursday night for a game, you'll see it on here as well. That'll be where I will do a tip for that game, and then you'll just see it the next day or so. But having said that, Port by 18 they won by 50. They smoked Carlton, and Carlton's season is a write-off, and now 32 points off on that. I mean, both of these teams are going to miss finals. I don't expect Port to make it, given that they're effectively 3 games out of finals, or yes, 3 games out of finals at least. And you could almost argue that they're going to be 4 next week, or potentially 4 if games out of finals next week, because if they lose, then one of these 2 teams or one of these 3 teams is going to win, which will put them onto 40. And the funny thing is, if Gold Coast has actually won against against GWS, you'd see GWS on 32, Gold Coast on 40. Then this would get even more harsh and even more to the point of them being 4 games out of finals. But there's still only 3. But with 8 games to go, they really need some luck to form their way, to be honest with you, to make it. So I don't expect them to. Sydney, they needed to beat the Dogs, because this would have meant that they would have been a chance to be 2 games out of 2.5 games out of finals, effectively 3 still, but it would have meant that the Dogs are 1 win less, so needed to win it. They didn't in the end. They had some big outs, and Dogs were just too good, and Sydney again, goal kicking was not their forte, and they lost by 9 points when they won the expected score by I think 13, so a 22-point flip. I had them losing by 23 just because of the Amati and the McCartan news. So, 14 points off there. Gold Coast against Melbourne, tipped them by 25. They won by 6. They won by 19, sorry. So, it was 6 points off there. So, a pretty good tip that game. And then Hawthorn against North Melbourne. I had Hawthorn by 15 points. I thought North Melbourne would put up a much, much better fight than they did. That was pathetic by them. And in the end, I was 70 points off on that tip. Then the Pies against the likes of the Eagles. I tipped the Pies by 45, and in the end, they won by 29, but I was still 16 points off there. And then you had a Richmond against Adelaide. I had the Crows by 50, and they ended up winning by 68, so it was 18 points off there. And then to round out round 16 before we get into the next round of tippings. I had Freo by 35. They ended up scraping over the line by 12, so I was 23 points off on that tip. Now we get to round 17. Tonight we've got North Melbourne versus Western Bulldogs. Libbers 250th. I just can't see a world, especially with the lineups that we've got for this game already. I can't see a way in which North Melbourne win this one, and I think this could get ugly. They don't have Luke Parker. They don't have McDonald as well. They're playing McKercher up forward. I think they could really struggle with ball movement. So I'm going to go the Dogs by 50 in this game over the likes of North Melbourne in a huge blowout on the Thursday night. Then we've got Carlton against Collingwood. Carlton look absolutely horrific, and Collingwood look like they're just going from one step to another. I know it will be a rivalry, so it's probably bound to be relatively close. So you can probably halve the margin of what it probably should be if this wasn't a rivalry game. But I'm going to go Collingwood by 29 points in this one. I think Carlton fight a little bit, but they just fall away in the last quarter. GWS, even without Whitfield, you'd still say are massive, massive favourites in this game against West Coast. And I think they put it on against the Eagles. The Eagles are, they don't really have anyone returning. That's the bad part. And it will be interesting to see the lineups that they have. But I'm going to go GWS in this game by just a straight 7 goals by 42 points. And then you've got Essendon against Gold Coast. Gold Coast should surely be favourites in both of these games that happen in the next, 8 or 9 weeks. So you'd expect them to pull away here and really cement themselves sort of inside or in and around that 8. I mean, you could see GWS aren't going to be able to jump Gold Coast this week. But if they go bang and then they have another good round and really jump again, if they have a 100-point win followed by a 100-point win, they're going to jump. But I don't expect that to happen. So I expect Gold Coast just need to win out to stay ahead, obviously. So I'm going to go Gold Coast in this game I just think that they're way too... I know Essendon will have some players coming back, but they've already had, so many guys go down with injury. So I just don't think that they're a shot here. And I think it's almost in their betterment to actually just lose. So I'm going to go Gold Coast here by, I think, 35 points. I don't think it will be the best game for the neutral. I'll say that game. Then you've got Geelong against Richmond. I think Geelong are just going to be able to pull this one out. And so, yeah, I think they win this one pretty comfortably. And they could probably rest some of their stars. I think they're going to win it by 76 points. And I think Jazza Cameron could kick 7 or 8 in this one. So, yeah, that's going to be a tough watch for Richmond fans. Then you've got Brisbane against Port Adelaide. You'd be a madman to tip against Brisbane. I feel like, yes, they've won 3 out of their last 5 and are losing ground to Collingwood and stuff like that. But you'd still say that they're just gearing themselves for finals. They just need to make it, get top 2. And that's basically job done for Brisbane. So I think that's what they're basically aiming for. So I think they're going to basically be able to do it against Port Adelaide here by a fair margin, but nothing outlandish. 27, 28 points, somewhere around that. 27 points we'll go with. Should be able to get the job done against Port Adelaide. And then St Kilda versus Hawthorn. St Kilda they just look off as a team at the moment. Like, they did put it up to Fremantle and then also Collingwood as well. They lost by 34 points late on. And they did lose pretty convincingly to the Bulldogs. But, like... I just don't see, like, even though I don't rate Hawthorn as much, like, I still think that they'll get the job done over the Saints in this game. And I'm going to go Hawks by, I think, 19 points. I think it will be scrappy. I don't think it will be perfect. But I still think that the Hawks will, just because of the firepower they've got up top, be able to get the job done. Sydney versus Fremantle. This will be an interesting game. I could see this going either way, and I think it will be the differentiator tip of the week. Most people have Sydney as favourites. Sydney do have supposedly the return of Joel Amartey and Tom McCartan, but there's whispers of other potential injuries. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes with the lists and lineups, etc. But I do think Sydney probably do get the win in this game, and I'm going to go Sydney in a very tight one by 11 points in this one. And then you've got Adelaide against Melbourne to round out the week. I just can't see a world in which Melbourne are able to cope with the tools of Adelaide at the moment. That's something that they look to be really struggling with. So I think Adelaide tools really do put some score on here. They really do punish Melbourne, and I think that they win it by 51 points in the end, even though you've got Max doing all that he can and the midfield for Melbourne doing all that they can. I just think that Adelaide will be able to just come over the top and win that game. But anyway, those are the tips for round 17 as well, going through the last couple rounds of the AFL season and my predictions and how well I went. But anyway, that's the video, guys. If you did enjoy, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.